Hey guys, how is everybody? It's Robin here, RsIslandCrafts, and I thought I'd show you a little quick tutorial today. It's about 8 o'clock at night, and it's a little dark in here, so we have some shadows, so I hope that's not too bad. What I've been doing lately is I've been going through my craft room, since I moved into a new craft room, and going through a lot of my stuff, repurposing, getting rid of stuff that's really no good, because I tend to be a little bit of a hoarder, and just trying to finish up some projects. One of the projects I'd found is I'd made this panel of Mary Englebright. It's a honey bun. It's from a honey bun roll, which is 1.5 inch strips by the width of fabric. And what I did is, I did this probably about 8 or 10 years ago. I just sewed it all together. I'll insert a picture here of what it looked like in the whole panel, but it ended up being wobbly like this because I didn't know that you had to sew 2 rows and then two strips and 2 strips and 2 strips, otherwise it gets wonky. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to take I decided to take them all apart and repurpose them into a different project. And I thought I'd show you the different ways that I know of to unstitch your strips. Now, you can use your basic seam ripper. It has the little red ball to stop you from ripping through, and then the pointy part. Your actual seam ripping is done here where the little blade is. Another type of seam ripper is just a straight razor. See the little curve there? I don't care for this one too much because it's real easy to just rip your fabric. This one I tend to use the most, and if you do use it a lot, you do want to replace it because, once again, it's a blade and it will go dull. I use it for unpicking a quilt block really quick or something, but when it comes to doing a long project like this, I tend to grab out the rotary cutter. Now, these are the two that I use. You see, I've put this blade as paper. I never cut fabric with this one. I take my old blade, when I put a new blade in for my fabric cutting, I take the old blade and move it to the paper cutter. Some people just keep the blades separately, but I like to have a separate cutter so I don't constantly have to change the blade because I am clumsy and I will cut myself. So these are the 45mm. This one's a little bit big. If you want to be, we're going to be using it to slice into the thread of the seam, and it's too much blade, too easy to rip it. Now you can use this itty bitty 18mm. This one is for cutting around templates, and I have a circle cutter that this works really well for. But what I found is the most comfortable is this 28mm. Fits nice in the hand, has a nice grip to it. Small blade still, so it's easy to maneuver and handle. Alright, so what you're going to do is you have a couple options. You can take your seam ripper and you can pick out, this is with white thread, so it's hard to see. If you can see which one's the bobbin and which one's the top thread, though they say it doesn't really matter, you can just go under and slice the threads. Now you can do this like every 3rd or 5th thread, seam, stitch, whatever, all the way through. And if you're good and you can see and you don't hook the fabric, you can do it, and then you can just grab this and see, and you can just pull. See how it pulls apart right there? And then anything in between you missed, you can just do like that. But for me, what I like to do, I like to take it with my rotary cutter. Be really careful because this will slice you open. We're talking slice you open stitches. So what I do, you can, for safety if you want, you can go ahead and just pull these first few out to get it started. Then you hold one, pull on the other, See the threads right there? You just let your blade touch the threads as you're pulling apart on these. See, I have this under my pinky. Hold it tight and pull. Just touch the threads. See, there's just the threads there, the stitches. Just touching the white thread, because you don't want to cut into your fabric, because you'll be in your seam. You can make a deeper seam if you have an oops, but you want to save as much fabric as you can. That was the whole point of going through the tediousness of doing this. See those threads right there? Just touch them with your blade, because if you're pulling enough tension on this, when you touch it with this, it'll just slice it right down. See that? I also like to, I started on, whatever. Sometimes if you start on this side and you have more fabric down at the bottom, sometimes it's easier. But I also will put it in my lap, and I will hold this on my lap. And as I hold this and pull this, it just goes really quick. But as you see, this is fast enough too. See how I have this turned and the knob is here? You're going to kind of, it makes it more difficult. Flip it over. Scrunch this down, hold it tight. Remember, you got to watch that blade. You don't want to nick yourself. So pull it and just gently do it. Don't try to do too many at once, because you don't want to slip. Go back down, hold it tight. See how some of them are just pulling open anyway? There's that thread. In just a matter of no time at all, really. I pulled off, let me show you how many I've already done. I did all of these. It took me a couple hours while watching YouTube videos. I just went through and undid them all. You're basically going to have, you have two seams, like this one right here, this flower one here. You have a seam here and a seam here. This looks like a knit fabric almost, or like rope. But you have two seams to do, so it's, even if you have 45 fabrics, you're still going to have more like 80 seams to pull. And you just keep going. Now if you accidentally just nick right here just a little bit, if it's just a small little nick, you already have holes from sewing it, so one little oops isn't going to have a problem. If you were to slice it, then you can just go ahead and cut your fabric. You know, take a pair of scissors. I'm not going to do it because this is still good fabric, but you just slice it off right here. Slice it off right there where you have your little slit. Then you have all of this fabric and all of this fabric. Perfect for log cabin quilts, quilt as you go table runners. These are good for 1.5 inch honey buns, are good for mug rugs, pot holders, placemats. It's about the size of the strip that you would use for binding, single fold binding on a mug rug. And so I'm in that point where I'm doing the save all the scraps, and if you don't like what it was, just take it apart and repurpose it for something else. So there's no reason why you should just throw this away. And like I said, I could have taken one of my squares, just rotary cut around it, and made whatever size square I could get out of it, or take one of my longer rulers and cut strips this way. And then I could have had, like, for piano keyboarders, or I could have made tote bags out of this. At one point I was going to make a tote bag, but then I thought, I don't know, there were still parts where it had a curve. Anyone who's sewn several strips together, one after another, without altering top to bottom, or 2x2s, will understand what I mean when there's a curve. And this is just, like I said, just a way to repurpose it. Plus, Well, if you're sewing clothes and you have to undo a long leg seam or something, this will come in handy. And it's just busy work while you're sitting there watching videos or movies. Have your nice beverage of choice nearby. Not too much alcohol because, you know, you might end up cutting yourself. A nice glass of wine. Cold glass of sweet tea. Pepsi. See, now I'm doing this looking down through the to the camera, and I've been babbling, and this is my little timer shows 11 minutes, so we know it's only been a few minutes that it takes to actually do one of these, because most of that was just babbling. See, when you get to the end, make sure you always close your rotary cutter, and then this is it. Now what I do is I take it over and I iron that seam back open, and then I take, here it is, the little lint catcher, and it'll just go through and catch all those threads. It's ready to be changed. It doesn't have any stick left to it, but it'll get all your threads off, and then you can go ahead and reuse this and make something new. So there you go, quick little tutorial for me, Robin from RsIslandCrafts. Have a great day. Bye.